Joël Dicker. I read 3 books from him. The Affair of Harry Quebert, Disappearance of Stephanie Mahler, and Baltimore Boys. Joël Dicker is a Swiss writer. He was born in 1985 in Geneva, Switzerland. So he is a kind of young for a writer. Quite many or most writers start when they are 40 or 50, not when they are 20. But he did start when he was 20 and got these Young Writers Awards and so on. And actually he was quite young when he did write his bestseller, or the first bestseller, which was the Harry Quebert affair. It was written in 2012. So he started young. He writes in French because, as you know, there are 4 official languages in Switzerland and one of them is French. But so there is this affair of translation. I had the feeling when I did read those books, it was like I did read one and then something else and then the next one and then something else and then the next one and then something else. And I started to read them purely because it was said that they are very good and they were very popular and they were very well booked in libraries. And my husband's co-worker gave us those pieces, so I did read them. But would I recommend them? Not necessarily. There are much better books in the world. But if you want to read something to just clear your head, something that doesn't have anything that you would get emotional or struck or upset or something like that, there is nothing like that. So you can just read and read and read and read and read. But why am I not so happy about them? Well, there is of course the question of translation. They are written in French and then translated to English and different languages. But I have noticed that French is very different in writing than other languages. And it may take the finesse off of the book when you simplify it same time as you translate it to other languages. And of course the young age of the writer shows. I didn't know it the first time I started to read it, and I thought this was wrong with this. There is no, like, the depth that you get from the experience, life experiences, tragedies, that kind of things. You learn and you have a certain depth in your voice after that. You know what you are talking about. But that's somehow missing. So these are that kind of light. And I can understand now when I found out that he was quite young writing these first books, that of course it has to be that way. They do feel like they were written by a young person, which is of course okay if you like to read that kind of books, and especially if you are a young person yourself. They were very well received in Europe. People did read them and buy them a lot, but in US people were not so happy. And yet again, I can understand why. The writer living in Switzerland places his books in the US to the environment he has not lived in, at least not very long time, because he hasn't lived quite a long time anywhere. And there are quite a lot of cliches and there are quite a lot of these kind of stereotypes that yet again lack the depth. And I wouldn't recommend anyone to use these kind of stereotypes and these kind of cliches, because they can be rather like, people feel hurt when they read cliches about their own people, and that's not nice, that's not good. But the books themselves has this kind of a long story, each of them. I don't go them one by one through. They are all the same, but what can I say? They are written by the same writer. He has his own like method and way of writing, and that's okay. Everybody who has like read books from Stephen King knows that they are all the same, but still people who like them buy always the next one and read, even though it's more or less the same than the previous one. But it's a style, and if you like it, you like it, and you can read book after book after book. So this book has this long story, and people come and go, and then everything wraps up in the end. And that's something that bothered me quite much with the first book, with the Harry Quebert. It's like you build up this plot, this like magnificent plot with the many twists and turns, and it's almost impossible to come out of that situation, and then suddenly, like last 20 pages, you get that, okay, that was a misunderstanding, he wasn't actually there, it didn't actually happen, and then everybody's happy in the end. But I feel that that's awfully cheap. It might be even worse than to just leave everything hanging in the air and maybe then write a sequel. But this was like one of his, I have the feeling that somebody starts to write and then they get bored and then they just end the book. They don't have the energy to write the story through to the end. But like I said, these are long stories, about, what would I say, 400 pages per book. It comes easily. I didn't check, but approximately that kind of a page number. So there is a lot of happening, and of course, if you want to be just entertained and not think about anything, these are good for that. The other things that annoyed me were the wrong conclusions. If you have read any amount of books, you know that there are certain writers that really dig deep on issues, so they do not make mistakes with somebody's expertise. For example, in this case, in this last book, there was two like obvious mistakes. One was that there was this pathologist that was a profiler also. Well, I can doubt that, for example, at the first, but this profiler said that the murderer cannot be a psychopath because he has a motive for these killings. Like what? Like if somebody has a motive, psychopaths can have a motive, they have their own motive. But it doesn't mean that the killer cannot be a psychopath if there is obvious motive. And that was just like nonsense. And another mistake that I found, I'm now being a little bit mean, but these kind of things annoy me, like really annoy me. There was this kind of description that they drove with a big car and they towed a small car behind that big car. And there was nobody in the latter car. And that's not possible. If you have ever towed the car, you know that if you hit the brakes, the car that you are towing is going to crash you. So this writer never towed a car. And this kind of like cheap mistakes are, I don't know, it's very hard to understand. That didn't anyone, like publisher, anyone say that, by the way, this is wrong, this is a mistake. Please correct this mistake so you can entertain audience who has written a lot and is civilized. And that's what comes through these books. The lack of knowledge and the lack of life experience. But they are stories. If you want to, I read these books when I was waiting for another book to come from a library or somewhere else, or my husband to finish it, so I can get to the book that I wanted to read. and this was in my nightstand, and everybody said that these are very good, everybody reads these. So I read them, I know what they are all about, and if you want to be entertained, if you read a lot, then go ahead, read these, then you know what people are talking about, and you can draw your own conclusions. Are they good or aren't they? So I recommend with the but and if, but after this I head straight to the classics. I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Goodbye.